everybody, this is Perch. I hope you're doing well. We've got some viewer message here, so let's do this. This is a random question, but I like it. So, yeah, I like the more esoteric questions that come out of nowhere. So here it goes. It says, "Hey Perch, this may seem like a random question, but I can't help but ask it. Why are 99.99% of all comic book hero costumes spandex or mostly spandex? Even just a quick browse of Justice League comic on Google shows a group of guys and girls wearing skin-tight costumes. Even Cyborg, who is, well, a cyborg, has muscle sculpt and abs. Villains seem to be less restricted in this sense, but even Brainiac has a lot of art that depicts him similarly. You can skip the rest of the mail if you don't want the manga comparison. I do want the manga comparison, so let's do it. I know you're probably tired of it, but I find it very useful as a point of comparison. Browsing through manga covers, I actually couldn't find one that was wearing spandex until I found one that had All Might from My Hero Academia on it. I thought that maybe is unfair since most manga aren't about superheroes, though their premises tend to be fantastical. Limiting my search to My Hero Academia should be fair, but no. At best, I'd say half the heroes in MHA have spandex as their hero costume. I then tested out One Punch Man and found more skin-tight costumes, but there was still more variety there. On a tangential topic, I couldn't help but notice how samey the JLA was in comparison to other images in terms of character silhouette. But maybe that's just me. What about you? How many characters from each franchise would you be able to recognize from the silhouette above? Now, I've included these pictures here, and so you'll see them spaced out in the video. But this brings an interesting question to the mix, which is it's basically this. So I'm going to add to the question. Why is it that if you go on Twitter and you listen to comic book creators, they talk about body positivity and they talk about negative self-image, and you see a lot of comic characters being made to represent diversity and kind of other types of body types and skin types and everything else? You see a lot of that right now. Okay? So why is it that, given that, everybody still wears skin-tight costumes? Because the reality is, when you look at kind of characters, and My Hero Academia is a good example because there's this character, Mount Lady, which is basically wearing a very tight, skin-tight outfit, and it shows off her ass. And even in the very first, kind of issue or chapter of My Hero Academia, this character shows up, and all the men who are, kind of watching this hero save the day are horny because she's wandering around, her butt's hanging out, and it's like, it's super, it's basically all the otaku there just getting super, super erect. But anyway, why is it that with all of the commentary and all the push for kind of diversity and different and changes in how they operate, why is it that superheroes continue to go back to the well of spandex costumes? Why? I mean, you would think that, and for that matter, Kelly Thompson, a couple of years ago on CBR, hired or paid or used CBR's money, one of those, for an artist. And I forget who did it. Somebody will remember in the comments, but basically paid for an artist to redesign superhero costumes. And the basic redesign was to put all of the women into hoodies and baggy clothing. That was basically the summary of like all the costumes. They took skin-tight superhero costumes and they put them into, baggy hoodie costumes. What was weird about that is Kelly Thompson was basically making the point before she started writing for Marvel that the characters and the costumes were sexist and they were, it was just gross. Basically, she was making that point. And there's a couple of people who made videos off that article, and it is funny. I mean, you look at it, and it's comical. If you look at all the costumes, are like basically take the outfits and reduce them to baggy clothes where the women are kind of slunched over and looking kind of pissed and unhappy. That's how all the character redesigns looked, even without the costumes. So, Kelly Thompson then becomes a writer at Marvel, gets put on big projects. Why didn't, what happened? Why didn't she actually push through and get those costumes changed? And the reality is, and this is something that a lot of comic writers, I think, don't like to admit, especially on Twitter, But the reality is that the bread and butter of the comic artist audience, the people who are buying these comics, tend to be people who want to see skin tight, sexy costumes. And so even though there will be a lot of, talking time around diversity and body positivity and all those other things, I mean, look, even if you forget about the comics for a moment and you go to a comic convention, you'll see tons of people doing cosplay. And of the people doing cosplay, you will see tons of sexy skin tight costumes. Now, are the people doing that, offended and embarrassed to be doing those costumes? No, that's what they gravitate to. At the Dallas Comic or Fan Expo that I went to, there were like a dozen women who were dressed as Starfire, and I'm talking kind of the older Starfire costume. It was basically kind of the Borat, unithong or whatever. They were running around like that, and it was noticeable because it was hot as hell. I mean, right now in Dallas, it's like 103. And, you look at people with those kinds of costumes with some kind of like awe and feeling of jealousy because they're like, at least that person's staying cool. But anyway, that's what comics are all about. Why is that? Because it sells. I mean, as simple as it is, we can make lots of comments about how the world has evolved and people want to see different things. And we definitely want to see more, more variety in costumes. But the reality is, both from the customer standpoint, it sells, and from the creator standpoint, this is one thing, it was a secret to let out the bag. If you're a penciler for a comic making, let's just say, not enough money, right? Your page rate is low. It is, and you're doing superhero comics. Quite frankly, it is much easier to draw a sexy, fit, attractive woman or man than it is to draw an out of shape, hunched over, slunched, a crappy guy or woman. And that's why, I mean, quite frankly, that's why a lot of superheroes, they draw them for all intents and purposes naked, and then they kind of paint on the costume. I hope I'm not ruining comics for you, but if you pick up a comic and you look at how the men are drawn, what you quickly come to is like, yeah, they just drew naked dudes, kin body style, meaning the dick is chopped off, but basically, idealistic nude men, and then they draw little lines to represent the costume. That's how they're doing it. They're not, when most artists, when they draw superhero books, they don't think about the costume. The costume's kind of an afterthought of painting the colors onto the character. That typically is how it goes. And, if you get to talking to an artist who's willing to kind of open up and be honest with you, they'll tell you that the costumes that are more elaborate, the ones that are, baggy or kind of create more complexity of the characters, are a pain in the ass to draw. John Byrne, several years ago, talked about how, the Human Torch was, a joy to draw, even with all the little lines representing fire on his body, because it was basically draw the outline of a naked dude and, then draw some fire on it, and there you go. And women are largely the same. That's how the industry works. It's easier to draw, and it's more appealing. Whether anybody likes it or not, having these characters kind of run around basically nude with some paint on their body is considered attractive. It's considered idealistic. It's considered what people want to go for in these comics, and so that's why you get so much of them. A lot of artists don't want to say that. Nobody's going to go on Twitter going, you know what, I understand about diversity and body positivity and all that other kind of stuff. But the reality is, it's much easier and faster for me to just draw a fit, thin, tight, sexy, big-breasted woman, and then draw a couple lines on the body to indicate a costume and call it a day. It's just easier. It's easier, and that's why they do it. If you start looking at a lot of modern comics and look at the current run of the X-Men by Pepe Larraz and Jerry Duggan, and look really closely at the figures and the bodies and the costumes, what you'll notice, and Pepe Larraz is a great artist, is that it's really designed to highlight the kind of nude male and female form, and that's kind of the entire gimmick. And in many ways, comic books just deny this from themselves, talking about all the other things they want to be. But the reality is, month in, month out, they do the same thing. Kelly Thompson has been at Marvel for several years now, and miracle upon miracles, the costumes are not baggy, puffy hoodies and other things. She's doing Captain Marvel. You might be shocked to realize that when Captain Marvel is in her costume, or Monica Rambeau, or Spider-Woman, or some female character that's visiting, they all look, if they were in real life, these would be top models with like super amazing figures, tight ass, big breasts and everything else, and they'd be amazing. So why haven't those changed? And the answer is because that's what the audience wants, and that's what's easier to draw. Anyway, maybe you have a different opinion on it. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.